The first real warning wasn't the HR calendar invite awkwardly stamped at 4:45 p.m. on a Thursday. It was the hush that fell over the room when she stepped inside. Three faces met her. Janice from HR with her gentle grimace, a fresh-faced legal intern barely old enough to rent a car, and the CFO, watching her like she'd just brought mud into a museum. No greetings, no offer to sit. Just a sealed manila envelope already waiting on the table like a headstone with her name on it. "Marcy, we truly value all you've brought to the company," Janice began, using that soft, hospice care voice corporations use when they're about to pull the plug. "But in light of ongoing resource realignment and our Q3 optimization, we've made the difficult decision to eliminate your position." The CFO cut in, hands steepled like he was hosting a seminar on passive-aggressive cruelty. "You've been classified as non-essential." Non-essential. The word didn't confuse her, it just hit her like a steel beam across the ribs. No advance notice. No prior warning. Not a single conversation about performance. Just non-essential, like she was a broken stapler cluttering up someone's new reorg chart. She didn't argue. Marcy took the envelope, nodded once, and walked out without a sound. She didn't cry. Not in the elevator, not when she passed the front desk where the receptionist avoided her gaze. Not even when she realized her badge had already been deactivated before she reached the front doors. But she did pause just outside the break room. Not for the burnt coffee or the stale trail mix she always hated, but because she heard laughter. Loud, snorting, careless laughter. "Just saved us $200,000, the CFO was saying. "One meeting. Boom. That's how you cut the dead weight." A brief silence. "Then, she'll probably open a candle shop or start selling crafts on Etsy." Laughter again. Ugly, open-mouthed, unbothered. She stood there for 5 seconds too long. Just long enough to imagine walking back in, jamming that envelope down his throat, and stapling it to his intestines. But she didn't. She walked out, tight-lipped, flushed with humiliation so deep it felt like acid in her lungs. 20 years. 2 decades of her life. She'd joined back when they still had pagers and spinning GIFs on the homepage. Back when the founder knew her son's name. She'd stayed through economic downturns, 3 CEO changes, 2 office floods, and 4 relocations. She had literally saved their largest contracts more times than she could count. She had baby teeth from client kids in her drawer as part of a long-running inside joke. But now? Legacy fat. And hey, if you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe. Apparently 97% of you listen without clicking that little button. Think of it like tipping the bartender who keeps the good revenge stories coming. Anyway, back in her car, an aging Toyota that smelled faintly like her ex-husband's cologne and failure, Marcy finally opened the envelope. The severance was as expected. 2 months' pay, contingent on an NDA that read like a vow of silence on steroid. HR even included LinkedIn talking points, the social media version of thanking your executioner with a grin. She flipped through until her fingers brushed a document labeled Exhibit A. It caught her eye. It was familiar. Her spreadsheet. Her exact template. The client relationship tracker she'd designed over a decade ago. Birthdays, lunch preferences, allergic reactions, family milestones, pain points, all mapped, color-coded, and cross-referenced. One column even had an acorn emoji next to a client's child who had a nut allergy. They printed it all. No edits. No redactions. Just the pure, unfiltered soul of their client portfolio. On the final page, her name was printed at the bottom. Curated and maintained by Marcy Thompson. She leaned back, closed her eyes, and smiled. Not because she had a plan. Not yet. But because the universe had just slipped her a loaded weapon inside a polite, HR-approved envelope. And the CFO? Still in the break room, laughing. Back in her recliner, she sifted through the pile again. It spilled across her lap like roadkill, legal jargon, HR euphemisms, and a severance agreement that offered hush money in exchange for erasure. But Exhibit A, that was different. She read it slowly now, letting each page sink in. Font size 11, Calibri. Personal notes. Contact. Emotional context. Stuff no CRM tool could ever replicate. One page said, Client's wife undergoing treatment. Do not pitch this quarter. Too sensitive. Another note, only communicates via text. Hates phone calls. Except from Marcy. That last one made her pause. Except from Marcy. Her name wasn't just in the footer, it was embedded in the trust itself. These clients didn't trust the logo. They didn't trust the brand. They trusted her. And now, legally, because someone at HR rushed through a document without thinking, Marcy owned that spreadsheet. No disclaimers. No confidentiality tags. Just a document stapled into a termination packet by mistake. She sat still, letting the anger cool, letting the grief crystallize into focus. They had fired their client whisperer like she was an expired carton of milk, and in doing so, handed her a live grenade made out of loyalty, data, and deeply personal knowledge. Her phone buzzed. A LinkedIn notification. CFO Jenkins had posted a humble brag. Tough decisions are part of growth. Grateful to those who got us here. #leadership. Marcy laughed so hard she almost choked. She clicked on his profile. There he was, grinning like he just won Employee of the Month at a used car lot. His bio was a cocktail of buzzwords, full of nothing. She looked down at the list again. 47 clients. 47 personal bonds. 47 potential pressure points. She didn't know when she'd move. Not yet. But she would. Because they'd handed the match to the one person who knew exactly where the fuse was. Later that night, Marcy sat in a bar tucked between a dying J.C. Penney and a vape shop that smelled like sugar and teenage rebellion. A worn-out Pabst sign flickered above her. The bartender still remembered her drink order. "Been a while, hon," he said, giving her that look, like he recognized the slump in her shoulders and the war behind her mascara. Across from her sat Liz Hammond. Once a top client, now a distant friend. She worked at VersaLink now, newer, sharper, more cutthroat. A place Marcy had secretly resented for years. "So it's true," Liz said, sipping her martini. "They dumped you." "Like a spoiled yogurt," Marcy muttered. "Said I was part of their legacy bloat." Liz let out a bitter laugh. "Christ. You were their retention strategy. Guess charm can't be measured in KPIs. Should have majored in Excel and emotional detachment." A quiet moment passed. Then Liz leaned forward. "I know this might sound crass, but want to jump ship?" Marcy raised an eyebrow. "I mean it," Liz said. "We've tried to recruit you before. Your relationships are gold, and I bet half your clients have already noticed your absence." Marcy hesitated. "I'm radioactive right now. Laid off and NDA'd. Not exactly a safe bet." Liz smiled, slow, sharp, like a cat eyeing a limping bird. "Oh, honey. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can hand a woman like you is a reason." "Our CEO's got a thing for radioactive," Liz said with a grin. "Especially when it's the kind that glows green and eats through our competition's Q4. Marcy didn't commit. But she didn't decline either. Liz scribbled down an email address on the back of a cocktail napkin and slid it over like it was a classified document. "Send me your resume tonight. I'll take it straight to the top." Marcy went home with a buzz in her veins, part alcohol, part fury, and her sense of self still taped together by willpower and worn-out dignity. But as she settled into her chair surrounded by limp sympathy bouquets from colleagues too cowardly to protest, she felt something crackle in her chest. Not joy. Not hope. Something sharper. Possibility. She opened her laptop. Didn't even need to look for her resume. It was already polished and ready to go. She'd been keeping it up to date for years, the same way someone with trauma keeps a go bag packed by the door, just in case. 36 hours later, she was seated across from a panel inside the glossy, sunlit walls of VersaLink HQ. The building smelled like ambition and clean drywall. No scripts. No HR platitudes. Just sharp questions and sharper people who actually paid attention to her answers. 48 hours after that, her phone rang. "We'd love to have you," said the voice on the line, rich and grounded, like the scent of dark roast and a solid handshake. "You'll be our lead account strategist. Total autonomy. We don't micromanage titles here. We care about trust. You in?" Marcy looked out her window. Across the street, a construction crew jackhammered concrete like they had a grudge. She smiled. "Yeah," she said. "I'm in." She ended the call and sat still for a moment, letting the silence settle around her like fresh snow. Then she reached into her desk drawer and pulled out the worn, dog-eared packet labeled Exhibit A. She didn't need it to prove her worth. Versalink already saw her value. But her fingers brushed its edge like a priest fingering a rosary, because value was good and leverage was sacred. Versalink smelled like polish and new beginnings. No fluorescent hums, no sagging tiles, no ancient Keurigs dribbling lukewarm sludge. The people smiled here. Not those tight, overworked grins of corporate survival, but genuine ones. The kind you forget exist after years of emojis and generic birthday cupcakes from Costco. Her new desk was sleek, walnut-toned, and paired with a chair that didn't creak like a stressed-out smoker. She kept Exhibit A tucked neatly in the bottom drawer, folded in thirds like a love letter from a past life that didn't deserve her anymore. She never showed it around. Didn't wave it like a threat. She didn't have to. Versalink didn't play the same games. During her first week, the CEO, Cal Weston, gray-templed, wicked-sharp, and refreshingly void of startup arrogance, invited her for coffee. No PowerPoint, no small talk. Just a mug that said, "Don't mess with my margins," and one question. "So," Cal asked, leaning back, "what kind of relationships are you bringing with you?" Marcy gave a tight, knowing smile. "A few solid ones. They'll take time." Cal nodded. "Good. We're not looking for explosions. Just friction." Then he winked like he was handing her the coordinates to something classified. Back at her desk, she began small. No fireworks. No grand moves. Just observation. Listening. Learning. Laying the groundwork. Versalink's CRM was polished. Sleek UI, lots of integrations, but it lacked texture. No birthdays, no personal quirks, no notes scrawled in the margins. It was all drop-downs and data, no heart. So, she began to enrich it. Quietly. Carefully. A note here. Who hated 9 a.m. calls because their kid had hockey practice at night. Another there. Which client only opened emails if the subject line included a private joke. She didn't change data. She added life to it. And during onboarding breaks and strategy syncs, she'd pull out Exhibit A. Not for vengeance. Not yet. For research. She combed through it like an archaeologist brushing dust off gold. She remapped her old terrain, birthdays, contract cycles, soft spots, quirks. One client had a major rollout planned for September. Without her steady hand, they'd likely trip over QA. Another had a custom report due she always prepped by hand. She doubted anyone remembered. She logged all of it. Not digitally. Too traceable. Instead, she bought a battered spiral notebook from a gas station and scrawled garden tools on the cover with a thick Sharpie. No one asked. No one cared. But inside, it became her war map. By week 3, she knew exactly which accounts were fragile, which were just annoyed, and which were dangling by a single misfired email. She didn't tell anyone. Not even Cal. But one morning, as they passed in the hallway, he simply said, "Let me know if any names are worth dialing." Just that. No pressure. No expectation. She only nodded. That night, with coffee in hand and Exhibit A on her lap, she highlighted another name. Her hand didn't tremble anymore. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. And she was nearly ready. It began with a subject line so casual it could have worn Crocs. Just checking in, smiling face with smiling eyes. She sent it to Paige Dunleavy, VP of Procurement at Kinley and Brooks, one of her longest-standing accounts. Together, they'd survived 3 budget freezes, 1 scandal, and Paige's divorce, which they'd processed over Pinot Grigio and Caesar salads back in 2016. No logo. No title drop. No sales pitch. Just, "Hey Paige. Hope you're holding up in the madness. Just wanted to check in. Felt strange not to say hi after all these years. No agenda, I promise. Just miss our catch-ups. Take care. Marcy." She hit send. Didn't stare at it. Pretended she forgot. 3 hours later, her inbox pinged. Subject: "Just checking in, smiling face with smiling eyes. Marcy, holy hell. You're alive. I was starting to think you joined witness protection, or something. It's been weird since you disappeared. No announcement, no warning. Suddenly we're dealing with a support portal run by some intern who thinks escalation means hitting people with chairs. Where are you? Can I call?" Marcy read it twice, then smiled. Not a smirk. Not triumph. Something warmer. She replied, "Of course. Anytime. I'm with VersaLink now. Happy to catch up." Paige called within 30 seconds. "Okay," she said, voice hushed like a confession. "I'm just gonna say it. It's been hell since you left." Marcy didn't interrupt. "They stuck us with some guy named Connor. He spells logistics with AZ and says it's on brand. I swear to God, I almost threw my laptop out the window." Marcy chuckled. "Sounds cutting edge." "Oh, shut up. You know you were the only reason we renewed last year. You caught that billing error before we even saw it. You sent me flowers when my dad passed. Your name's still in our vendor Slack channel. You never removed me?" Marcy asked, surprised. "Hell no," Paige said. "I kept hoping you'd come back. That landed hard. Not someone like you. Just you." Marcy didn't say anything for a moment. Paige filled the silence. "Look, maybe I'm jumping the gun, but if you're allowed to talk about VersaLink, I'd love to hear what's cooking, especially if it means I never have to hear Connor say synergistics again." Marcy's heart thumped, heavy, certain. Like the first beat of a war drum. "I'd love that," she said. "Let me pull a few things together. We'll talk next week? Or sooner?" "Your call." "Sooner," Paige said. "Our review's coming up and look, your old team makes us feel like a number. You never did." After the call, Marcy didn't write anything down. Didn't rush to Slack, didn't ping her new boss. She just sat. Quiet. Let the validation sink in like a deep breath she didn't realize she needed. It wasn't just that they noticed she was gone. It was that they felt it. Her name didn't belong to her old company anymore. It belonged to her. And now it was moving. The war room wasn't a war room. Not yet. Technically speaking, it was a side conference room in the east wing of VersaLink, half swallowed by white bards scribbled to exhaustion, the remnants of takeout meals, and a Bluetooth speaker that only connected when coaxed like a rescue dog. Marcy stood at the head of the table, which now bore her exhibit, divided meticulously by renewal timelines, projected revenue, and emotional weight. Her personal holy trinity of client acquisition. To her left, Ellie from Creative hunched over mock proposals, red pen in hand, eyes gleaming with homicidal focus. On her right, Raj from Sales nursed a cup of bitter coffee and nodded so enthusiastically at each suggestion it was obvious something financial, perhaps a mortgage, was on the line. Across from her sat Cal Weston, absently tapping his pen, like trying to match the rhythm of her pulse. "You sure this isn't overkill?" he asked, flipping through one of the pitch folders like it might detonate. "Overkill," Marcy replied, not bothering to look up, "is firing off one-size-fits-all email blasts and praying someone clicks learn more. This," she gestured to the table, "this is precision work. Each folder was a bespoke artifact. No generic here's what we offer schlock. No smiling models shaking hands in oatmeal-colored lobbies. Instead, tailored dossiers, custom fit with performance metrics, project insights, and solutions aligned with pain points she already knew had emerged since her dismissal. Client A hadn't had a review meeting since she left. Client B was overdue 2 quarterly reports. Client C's CIO had finalized a divorce. Marcy knew because she sent a sympathy card that the old vendor never bothered with. Each package contained a handwritten note. Identical in wording, "We understand you've lost your point of contact. We'd be honored to be considered." Subtle. Sincere. A scalpel, where her former employer would have wielded a sledgehammer. Raj let out a low whistle. "These are stunning. Want me following up next week?" Marcy shook her head. "No follow-ups. Not yet. Let the silence speak. Let them notice the absence." Cal raised an eyebrow. "You really do know where the nerves are." "I spent 15 years memorizing their soft spots," she said coolly. "I'm just nudging them now." One by one, the folders were slid into navy blue envelopes, unbranded and handwritten. No corporate logo, no VersaLink fingerprint. They resembled invitations more than business pitches. And that's what they were, in a way, invites to abandon mediocrity, to recall the warmth of real partnership, to return to someone who actually cared. The final envelope was addressed to Hartwell Dynamics, the big one. The same client her former CFO once dubbed a non-negotiable pillar. Marcy sealed it with the calm of a woman sending a wedding invitation to her ex's mistress. She gave the courier just one instruction: hand-deliver every envelope to the executive floor. No exceptions. The courier nodded like he'd just received launch code. Then? Stillness. No fireworks. No Slack threads. No victory laps. Just the hush that follows setting the timer on a very polite bomb. 27 hours later, her inbox chimed. Subject: Hartwell Dynamics, opportunity to reconnect. Body: Marcy, seeing your name again, you have no idea how much that means. Let's talk. Her breath caught for a beat. She didn't answer. Not immediately. She let it sit, took a sip of coffee, felt the quiet satisfaction creep up her spine like sunlight warming an old scar. They lit the match when they fired her. She was just giving them the gasoline. The first ripple came via LinkedIn. A message from a former intern now working at a boutique agency in Chicago. 9:03 a.m. Hey Marcy. Not sure what you did, but just saw 2 execs from your old place freaking out in a Starbucks line. Something about client attrition. You good? Also, mad respect. She didn't reply. Just muted the notification and smiled faintly. The second came 2 hours later, through Slack. Not her Slack. Their Slack. They'd forgotten to remove her from the external vendor channel. Dead space mostly. Until someone named Connor dropped a panic-fueled message. 10:57 a.m. Can someone pull contact history for Kinley and Brooks? Procurement just canceled our Q4 planning call. They're reassessing vendors. That word, reassessing, hung in the air like perfume. 10 minutes later, another ping. Just spoke with Hartwell. They're pulling dev budget and pushing back contract renewal. Said their needs have evolved. What does that even mean? Marcy didn't need to guess. She'd written that phrase into the proposal slide herself. Your needs have evolved. We're here to meet you where you are. It had begun. Not an avalanche. Not yet. But the tremors had started. By noon, a text from Liz, her old Thursday happy hour buddy. 12:12 p.m. You seeing this? They just dropped out of the Midwest Innovation Summit. That's $150K gone. CFO skipped the leadership lunch and locked himself in the glass cage all morning. Still, Marcy didn't gloat. Didn't pop champagne or post cryptic victory gif. She opened her strategy notebook, the one she called her garden tools, and flipped to the tab labeled Phase 2 Erosion. She underlined 3 names. Kinley and Brooks, Hartwell Dynamic, Revlon Track. All marked the same way, cracked. Later, she took a slow walk to the corner cafe and watched pigeons bicker over half a bagel. A serene hum buzzed inside her chest, less triumph, more awe. Like someone watching a wave build from far down the shore. Her phone buzzed again. Sam. The junior PM who shadowed her for 2 years. 2:46 p.m. CEO just called an all-hands for tomorrow. Topic: Client retention strategy. Everyone's losing it. It's like you're haunting the place. You're a legend. That word, ghost, stuck with her. Because ghosts don't rant. Don't retaliate. They linger. And she'd left her presence embedded in all the right places. That evening, the VersaLink sales team gathered for their weekly check-in. Everyone gave updates. When it came to Marcy, she spoke plainly. 3 client reconnections. 2 proposals under review. 1 deal signed. Cal Weston arched an eyebrow and gave her a grin, the kind reserved for someone who just knocked over a queen with a pawn. Quiet week, huh? Marcy leaned back, crossed one leg over the other, and smiled with a soft Midwestern calm, the kind of smile that offers you pie after church, and poisons it if you talk back. Just planting seeds, she said. Looks like spring's coming early. The call came at 6:17 p.m. That liminal moment between wrapping up the day and pouring a drink. Unknown number. Cleveland area code. She let it ring once, twice, before answering like she'd been waiting. Hello. A pause. Then, Marcy. No introduction. Just her name, heavy with CEO panic. It was the voice of a man who thought he still had control. She didn't flinch. Well, she said, that was quick. I just got off the phone with 2 board members. Do you even realize the damage what the hell do you think you're doing? And there it was. His composure, cracking like cheap glass under too much weight. She sipped her tea, Earl Grey, unsweetened. Just the heat. I'm doing quite well, actually. Thanks for asking. You've been contacting our clients. Don't insult my intelligence. I've been speaking to people I've had relationships with for over a decade, she said, voice even. If you mistakenly gave me a client roster in your severance packet, well, she let the rest dissolve in the air. That list was proprietary. You labeled it Exhibit A. I swear to God, Marcy. She didn't need to raise her voice. That's the secret about real power. It doesn't yell. It just waits while the other side self-destructs. You should check your mail, she said. What? Your actual mail. Physical. Navy envelopes, hand-delivered yesterday, I believe. You'll know them when you see them. Jesus Christ. Not quite. But close enough for your purposes. He was sputtering now. Broken sentences, brittle tone, the collapse of a man who thought he was holding a sword and just realized it was a boomerang. You planned this. This is sabotage. No, she said simply. I'm just available. And when people realize they miss being treated like human beings, they tend to return to the one person who always did. Then she let the silence stretch. Let him feel how completely the power had shifted. That raspy, uneven breath, the kind that only escapes when you suddenly realize the floor's about to give out, and there's no policy, no protocol, no email thread that can patch it. You know how hard we fought to keep those clients, he said. She didn't even blink. You mean the ones you said were locked in? Her voice was calm. The ones you reassigned to Connor? The guy who thinks synergy is a fortnight skin. She reclined slowly, propping her feet up on her ottoman. Yeah. Real ironclad. You think this is funny? He asked. No, she replied. I think it's poetic. Then, nothing. The kind of silence that's thick and swollen. Like an old bruise. How many? He asked. Finally. Quiet. Measured. She didn't answer. Just smiled into the phone. That's the thing about trust, she said. You don't always know it's gone. Until it's too late. Then she ended the call. No final dig, no shouting match, no last laugh. Just click. She set the phone down gently. On her screen, a fresh email arrived. Subject. Excited to move forward. Signed and returned. Marcy closed her eyes. Let it wash over her. This wasn't just retaliation. It was choreography. Across town, in the overpriced, overscented boardroom of her former company, the mood was curdled. 10 executives. 1 sterile oak table. 0 explanations. In the center sat a stack of envelopes. No logos. No markings. Just Navy cardstock and hand-lettered names. Interns hadn't known where to send them. A few execs thought they were invites to a gala. Others assumed consulting junk mail. They opened the first at 9:01. By 9:08 it was dead silent. Each letter was a surgical strike, client by client. Specific, unervingly accurate, and laced with grievances that had never been addressed. One even quoted a billing error Marcy had flagged before being let go. Word for word. "That's confidential," someone whispered, holding up the letter like it might explode. Legal flipped through her HR file. The termination documents. Junior counsel, barely out of law school, looked up pale. "It was given to her," she said. "Exhibit A. It's in the severance packet." "But that's proprietary." "She didn't take it. We handed it to her. She didn't even use it to contact them. VersaLink did. Legally, she's clear." Another long pause. Then a red-faced executive barked, "You're telling me we gave our entire client map to the one person who understood it, then fired her, and now she's cleaning us out?" "Technically," legal said, flipping another page, "yes." A junior VP coughed. Couldn't speak. Someone spilled a coffee. Another exec stood up, nearly trembling. "Who signed off on including that file in her exit documents?" All heads turned toward the CFO. The same guy who once bragged about shaving $200,000 in non-essential salaries. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Because just then, the chairman, white-haired, scarred by 3 heart attacks and meaner than ever, leaned forward. "Still think letting Marcy Thompson go was a smart move?" Silence. Back at VersaLink, Marcy sat behind the glass wall of her new office, legs crossed. Mug in hand, the one that said, "Legacy this." Golden light spilled across her desk, catching the neat stack of fresh contracts waiting for onboarding. All of them new. All of them former client. Her inbox pinged again. Subject: moving forward. "Marcy, we're ready. We've signed. It already feels like we're finally back on course." She didn't grin. Not really. Just closed the email, took another slow sip, and gazed across the room. Her drawer was slightly ajar. Inside, folded with care, was Exhibit A. She'd never needed it. The war had ended, and she'd won it without shouting, threatening, or even standing up. Thanks for watching, you quiet legends. Subscribe to keep the coffee hot and the justice brewing. Your old co-workers won't even see it coming.